Tragedy struck the Joe Gibbs racing family last night. Former NASCAR competitor and co-owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, and of course, most importantly, the son of Joe and the father of Ty, Coy Gibbs passed away mere hours after celebrating his son's championship win for the team. Such a sad situation. Joe Gibbs has now lost both of his sons, and Ty has lost his father at just 20 years old. The Gibbs family has been at the center of intense criticism in recent months, but I urge everyone watching this video to be kind to the family as they grieve. This is an unthinkable tragedy that no one deserves. Coy Gibbs was 49 years old. Well, that didn't live up to the hype, did it? And I apologize. My hat's supposed to say Glue Factory. You might be able to see that. Hold on. Yeah, Glue Factory. Because I was covering up the Colts logo because they stink so badly. But as you can tell, I didn't plan that very well. So not the worst planned part of this video, hopefully, but I didn't plan it very well. All right, let's talk about the NASCAR finale, because I don't think it met many people's expectations. And I feel like those expectations were set so high from what happened at Martinsville that really there was no way that NASCAR could possibly top it, which they didn't. But I think it was a bit of a self-own that they had this mid of a race. Am I using that properly? I think the kids used the word mid. This was a mid race. There's no doubt about it. And like, if this was a mid-season race, like, this is probably a B. Because when you're sitting there saying, oh, there's going to be a Hail Melon, and all four of the championship contenders are going to run all together the whole time, and then it doesn't happen, and you have maybe one quote-unquote Game 7 moment that we'll talk about in a little bit. But at the end of the day, really, it was just a dominant performance from one of the Championship 4 drivers, and it was the Championship 4 driver that I would say had the least amount of fan support. In fact, I would say Joey Logano is not just doesn't have fan support, he also doesn't have a lot of active hate. He has apathy. Like, Joey Logano is the apathetic NASCAR champion, because I don't think people feel strongly enough about him one way or the other. And that's something we're going to discuss in this video. We're also going to discuss in this video why Phoenix should not be the NASCAR Cup Series finale, especially for what they're trying to do with the playoffs and the Game 7 moments and all this stuff. Because frankly, I don't think Phoenix has ever really been a good racetrack for NASCAR Cup Series competition. Now, a lot of people will look at the Xfinity race and will look at the truck race and say, oh yeah, man, great track. This is where the finale should be all the time. But at the end of the day, the people who are tuning in, the majority of people who are tuning in to a NASCAR event, are going to watch the Cup Series. They're not going to try to find USA Network to watch Xfinity, and they're damn sure not going to try to find Fox Sports 1 to find the Truck Series. Unfortunate as that may be, because that used to be the Speed Channel, but I won't get on that subject right now. Let's talk about the hype and the lack of hype, because it all centers around Ross Chastain and his inclusion in the Championship 4. Now, I almost wanted to say it's through no fault of his own, but yes, it is Ross Chastain's fault that the hype was so high for this race. Him doing the wall ride and the subsequent 100 million social media views and all of the talk show appearances and all of the talk from the media, all of it all week. And nonetheless, or not the least of which, it was NASCAR President Steve Phelps who was coming out and saying, there are going to be more people watching this race because of Ross Chastain, and they want to see what happens next. The worst part about today, and the total wet fart that it was, is the fact that you had the exact situation that they had been hyping the entire week set up. You had Ross Chastain running within 2 seconds of Joey Logano in third, has to pass Joey Logano to win the championship, and then the broadcast starts hyping that there's going to be a Hail Melon. And they're showing the wall, but then, of course, rightfully so, guys like Dale Jr., Jeff Burton say, I don't think that's going to work, and here's why it won't work. That's the first problem, I think, that the casual fans, anybody who tuned in expecting to see the Hail Melon, that was the first point where they're probably like, I'm going to turn this off. But there was that shot, and I know you were doing it because I know I was doing it, seeing Logano come around that last corner, and you're looking at the wall waiting to see a blue streak, a light blue streak on a dark blue wall come flying past. Everybody did it. And then when it doesn't happen, everybody is going to sit there and go, that's kind of a letdown. And, the drivers tried to talk you out of it. Ross Chastain himself tried to talk you out of it this week by saying, I'm not going to be able to do it. It hurt. I can't do it. I won't do it. It'd be very unlikely for me to do it here. He was in the exact position, the exact desperation position where if he could have made up a second and a half by riding the wall, he could have very well done it and didn't do it. So now you've got a big problem because not only did you not get the Hail Melon, you didn't get a Game 7 moment except for one, which was done by Ross Chastain, by the way. We'll talk about that in just a second. But Joey Logano, the NASCAR champion that is the most apathetic from a fan feedback perspective, people don't love Logano, people don't hate Logano, ends up winning. Yeah, no wonder everybody feels this is mid. Let's talk really quick about the Game 7 moment. Ross Chastain spinning Chase Elliott into the inside wall. I guess we can't even call it turn 1 because they don't call it turn 1. The new Phoenix is so stupid. But anyway, Ross Chastain turned Chase Elliott into the inside wall. And, it's expected. I've known that that's going to happen forever. It's lucky that Chase didn't get turned into the pit wall. Thankfully, he didn't. Because that would have really hurt if he had. I'm glad the restart wreck wasn't any worse than that. Are we expecting that Ross Chastain was going to lift in that situation? No. I think expectations, based on what we've seen all year, and the TV was hyping it again, was that, Chase Elliott's out of the race, he's a lap down, but guess what? He's right on the bumper of Ross Chastain. What's going to happen? Nothing happened. It's so funny that all this stuff happened throughout the year to set this expectation that you were going to have a crazy last lap, didn't happen, and you were going to have somebody intent wreck somebody, didn't happen. And if there was anybody who could get away with intent wrecking someone, it's Chase Elliott. And he didn't clean Ross Chastain out. So, now we get to Joey Logano and why, unfortunately, I'm seeing the exact same thing happening that I saw in 2018, which is there's people not happy about Joey Logano winning this championship, and I don't think they really understand why. And I feel like I've explained in this video why. It's not necessarily just because of Joey Logano. However, Joey Logano did absolutely dominate this race, and it was obvious almost from the very first lap that he was so far and away dominant outside of Ryan Blaney, who ultimately just was like Wedge Antilles. He was like a tail gunner in the Death Star trench run at the end of the thing, making sure that he could cover off any Hail Melons that came at Joey Logano. But, Ryan Blaney was never going to race Joey Logano if there was even a chance of a Championship 4 driver being within range. And that's exactly what happened. Joey Logano was so dominant that everybody essentially, whether you accepted it or not is one thing, but you knew very early on that Joey Logano was going to win that race and win that championship. And everybody sat through it. Nothing really happened, and Joey Logano won. This race was the antithesis of what NASCAR tries to produce with the playoffs and specifically wants to happen in the championship race. I don't think Phoenix is the right track for NASCAR to do what they're trying to accomplish to do. I think Phoenix is not a bad track from the perspective of it showcases great cars and great teams and great drivers because it's a driver's track. It's a track where you can set the car up badly or you can set it up well. It's not like NASCAR finishes the season at Talladega, where a lot of those factors are reduced. I'm not going to say they're totally eliminated, but they're reduced. Phoenix is the type of track where you can have a driver be dominant, and that's exactly what happened today. And with what NASCAR wants to produce, with what NASCAR, I think, wanted this race to be, they didn't get it. A Martinsville, why not switch Martinsville? They should do that right now. Phoenix should be the race to get in the Final Four, and then Martinsville should be the finale. That should happen tomorrow. If NASCAR wants what they want, make Martinsville the finale tomorrow, because that's the race that I think would produce what NASCAR wants, which is Hail Melons, I guess, at this point. Yeah, it's a letdown. It's a shame that both of Joey Logano's titles have kind of been mid, and people have been upsetty spaghetti or just kind of like shoulder shrug, because it doesn't exactly induce a lot of like hype for the next year. But yeah, NASCAR goes away for 3.5 months. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Again, I want to extend my my deepest sympathies to the Gibbs family. I really do, because I was one of the people who has been criticizing them recently. But what a tragedy! It's so sad for that whole family. I can't even imagine 20-year-old Ty Gibbs losing his father, and I can't imagine Joe Gibbs having to bury 2 sons in his lifetime. It's just terrible. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, keep the Gibbs family in your thoughts and prayers, and I'll see you in the next video.